Welcome to Carrying the Torch, an igniting interview series with practitioners from the Global Human Movement Studies Network. Together, we're spreading a new perspective of radical physical education for the 21st century. Let's start today's interview. Hey there, it's Rich from Hidden Body, and next to me there's André from Movement Lisboa, father, practitioner, connoisseur of silence and good food. Before we dive into the deep, you just had lunch, right? We're here in Padova, the sunny Padova. What did you eat, and why did you choose that specific dish?
Okay, nice first question. So I ate a panini multicereali. I want to keep the Italian accent because I'm a practitioner, of course. So I could have some vegetables and some nice nutrients inside. And then the best thing that I found was fish, some grilled fish. So it was actually pretty good for the scenario. So,
nice. So being very specific in your choices, in what you decide to do, in your food, but also in your practice, in the skills you're developing, in the people you surround yourself with. So I'm also very interested in the person behind these choices and these decisions. So what in the past year or two were your biggest challenges as a student practitioner, as a teacher? And how did they influence the way you're teaching right now?
The biggest, I think that if I have to name the biggest challenge is to manage everything. Manage the life as a practitioner of movement, the life of a father, the life of a husband, the life of a human that also needs a space for his own, the life of a movement teacher, and I don't like to phrase it this way, but it is what it is, a business owner. And so juggling all of this is a constant challenge. It's a constant practice, if we take the word practice to an elevated platform. And so this was the biggest challenge. And also, this brings me the greatest lessons ever. And one of the biggest lessons is that we actually, most of the times, we have more time than what we think if we just don't allow us to get distracted, because we have a lot of things pulling us out from this, from our own time. And this is something that I need to keep reminding myself all the time.
Yeah. So this idea of distraction, and yesterday you also mentioned while we were walking that you are, correct me if I'm wrong, but that you're too distracted to notice that you're being distracted, which was a very funny statement that you made. And how does this experience, how does this influence the way you teach? So trying to find a way to do it all, so to speak.
I think like one of the ways it does it is to cultivate a certain awareness. So just cultivating the awareness of the here and now in a way, as this also brings us a lot of times the evidence that we are getting distracted from things that are pulling us out from our own space, from our duties, as I said, as a practitioner, as a family member, and so on and so on. And so I feel that this cultivating this silence in a way, like you said in the introduction, I feel that this silence a lot of times is just a pulling in, and almost like a zooming out at the same time, just to understand where I am in space at the moment. And yesterday I was too distracted to get distracted, because there were a lot of things happening but in a good way.
Yeah.
And so I was distracted because we suddenly decided to go into this little adventure where we were supposed just to get dinner, but there's no such thing as just getting dinner in a weekend or 3 days like this. And yeah, of course, like we get distracted, but in a good sense, because we are living an embodied experience, and this is the best way to get distracted.
Yeah. And I also really enjoyed what you said yesterday about this you could say cultivation of awareness also amongst your students by, for example, in a class giving them a box to stand on, to hang from, and then removing the box. Could you shed some light on how you cultivate this awareness amongst your students in a way that makes it accessible for people who have never heard from movement?
Yeah, sure. So one of the things that we need to understand is we shouldn't negate the fact that we have this tendency to preserve energy, to conserve effort, and these things show in the little details, and sometimes in some of the classes, because if you start to tell the students all these ideas with stories, etc., they a lot of times don't land at first unless you start to do little practical things and decisions that make them think about it. And so, for example, in a class, if we are going to hang, because at the studio our bar is quite high, and so usually they grab a box and they go on top of the box because it's easier to. But in certain classes, I deliberately decide not to put the box there, or I don't allow them in a way, in not in a bad way, but to put the box there, just as a way to remember what we are doing inside those walls, which is a movement class. And actually, if we are talking about a movement class, then everything, even the little detail, the way you decide to stand when you are listening to your teacher, the way you decide, the strategy that you decide to use if you need to climb to hang on the bar, if you are a little bit smaller, if you use chalk or not to hang, because this is also something that brings a little bit of comfort. And so sometimes these little decisions make people think about what are we truly doing, and actually make people understand that one of the blessings of our practice is this spatial dimension that can happen everywhere. We can be practicing right now, and actually maybe we are, right? Yes. In the sense that these small decisions can be a lot of times intended already as a practice. Just the fact that you are overcoming this habit, this sliding into more comfortable actions are already part of it.
Yeah. So talking about preserving energy, talking about giving students tiny changes within the classes so they actually start noticing what the tendencies are or what the structure is of a class. You also spoke about, for example, giving techniques or skills without too much explanation, and then noticing how people respond to it. In that sense, you're of course definitely a bringer of these embodied experiences, and there are so many, right? There are as many as there are numbers in the known universe, which is an infinite number of options. But what type of specific embodied experiences do you want your students to have, and why those specific experiences?
Yeah. So first and foremost, I think that generally speaking, and I know that you asked about my students, but first things first, we need for people to have embodied experience, whatever they are. This is step number one. And then maybe step number two is, I would say that one of the most ideas inside an embodied experience that we could explore is the embodied experience of creativity. And this also connects with the previous question that you asked me, because if we try to approach creativity from this embodied perspective, it's really about like seeing opportunities where nobody else can see, seeing moments where you can practice when nobody can see, making it easier to break the ice and kind of connect with someone. Because with this creativity also maybe it comes this ingenuity, this childish ingenuity. And this was something that struck me a lot since I became a father, which I think that you can relate to this. And when you are dealing every day with the two children, I feel that you are really closer to the source, as you also say, and I truly agree. And this brings a lot of inspiration to what I feel that we should be doing and we are not. And it has a lot to do with this, like seeing everything as our playground. seeing everything as a learning opportunity, more than the opposite, which is like walls that constrain us or limitations.
Yeah, beautiful. So this connection to creativity and then being inspired by your children. Once again, I can very much connect to this. So if a new person would come in, meet you for the first time, or step into a class of movement Lisboa, and that would be your last class ever, what would you tell that person? What kind of advice would you give that person?
I would say that the same curiosity that drove you here, that brought you here to the door of the studio, every day try to devote a little moment to conserve that curiosity, because I feel that conserving this energy, this ingenuity, this curiosity, seeing novelty, searching for novelty, it's something that can take us very far in the movement practice, but overall, like in our lives.
Thank you for listening to Carrying the Torch. Together we're spreading a new perspective of radical physical education for the 21st century. Take what ignited you and pass it on.